Hello, hello, beautiful people. Bellísima gente. Thank you for tuning in to KZAA 96.5 FM LP. You are listening to our show, Que Madre, and coming to you like hot and tenderly. This 2023, this is our first episode of the year, and I'm here with the incredible, beautiful warrior mother, Siobhan Hoover. I'm also Ali Cortez, a las órdenes, founder of Bienestar. And we are missing our sister, Ana Rosa Rizzo, the founder of this show that really has brought up so many topics, all about wellness, leadership, taking care of ourselves. We're having the pláticas, the conversations that we need to have. So thank you for listening. You know, your ears and your heart are so important to us, and all of you holistically are super important. So we're coming in with a special topic. And really, we want to talk about the power of tenderness. We started off last year with the year of the tiger. So it was fierce and go and strength and go, you know? And this year is the year of the rabbit. So let's take some lessons from that. That means that, you know, it's about play. It's about being strategic and clever and tender. And I'm so glad that I'm talking about this with the amazing Siobhan Hoover, because she definitely models that in so many ways. And I don't think you even understand how much you do that, Siobhan. So I'm super grateful, as we're also missing our beautiful Ana Rosa Rizzo sister, sending her so much love. So here we are. How are you, Siobhan?
I'm doing okay. You know, I have made it one of my goals this year to embrace the softness. And I have found it difficult at times to do that, especially within the last year or so. You know, I think that we get very calloused about relationships or jobs and whatnot. And so it's easy to bring out that fierceness and the hardness, bring out my inner gangster. But what we want to do really is, embrace all of that tenderness, the softness. And I think with that, though, you need to surround yourself with the right people and ensuring that, I guess, for one, we need to ensure that we take care of ourselves and model how we want to be cared for and how we want to be, taken care of. I know that over the last few weeks, I don't know about you, but oh man, it's just been, I've been traveling a lot. So of course with that comes like eating has not been all that great. And for me, that's something that's like a staple in my everyday life, is like eating well. Or exercising, that's been really difficult while traveling. And so modeling how to take care of oneself, and not just like through food and exercise, but emotionally and spiritually as well, is kind of the way to go. How do you feel about that? Do you think that that's
yeah, everything? I'm like, yes, Siobhan, your words are medicine, and we need each other. You know, I think part of being tender is being surrounded by the right people who will honor your need for tenderness. I think one of the stigmas around being tender and having compassion is that, you know, it makes you weaker, it makes you less, it makes you vulnerable. And I think we have to reclaim that word of vulnerability, because, you know, vulnerable means like, oh, you're open to being like eaten alive, right? Like that survival mechanism. But vulnerable these days is to, you know, that tenderness, the softness, and we're not given permission to do it, you know, like it's really hard to find the permission, because it's really embedded in this society right now. You know, like, yes, we're talking about the self-care. Yes, we're talking about, you know, self-actualization and, you know, all that. But like, to really live it inside and out, the reason it's challenging is because what you're saying, Sharon, it's like we need to have those people who like honor it, embrace it, and see it as a strength, and that they themselves do it themselves too, because that gives you permission too. So sometimes I think I've had a hard time finding like a role model, you know, through my childhood, or, you know, like to really embody like that tenderness, the softness, that and be it perceived so that I can feel it as a strength rather than a weakness.
Right.
So yeah, I love that we're talking about this.
Yeah, and I think that even like growing up, at least in my family, it was like, oh, to be strong, you gotta be hard. You can't let people see your emotion. You cannot cry. Oh my gosh.
Mm,
You cannot cry in front of people. You cannot be needy in the fact that like you may want affection or attention or anything like that. You just had to, it was very rigid, in some
yeah,
ways. And in
yeah.
other ways, it wasn't. I can't say it was always like that, but with certain family members or certain sides of the family, that's how it was. It was just always the need to be strong. And I like the way that you said we're going to reclaim vulnerability, because
Hmm.
now I am actually finding strength in my vulnerability,
Mm,
in my
yes.
ability to say this is what I need, this is what I want. It's um, it's so empowering. It gives you a voice,
Mm,
and I feel like a lot of women, especially women of color, kind of it's like they think that they are just failing instead of
mm.
saying, hey, actually these needs are not being met, or here's what I need from you.
Definitely. Yeah, there's such a connection between like your emotions and needs, right? So the needs is kind of that movement, that like that like momentum to like really get your voice out there, to get, that need met. And then when we've learned that, that's not a good thing, that's bad, all those labels around that, it goes within, so it goes inward, right? So we internalize that. And so that becomes like a well of suffering that just lives within you, and you're suffering, like, and and one way to not end the suffering, because there's also so many lessons in that, right? There's also rich lessons in that shadow. It becomes your shadow. So as you internalize it, it becomes a shadow. You're like, I don't want to be that. I don't want to, like, yet you can't outrun your shadow. It is you. It is part of you. And there's lessons to be learned there. And there is an opportunity for tenderness there to embrace that your light and your shadow coming together. Like, there's just much more beauty, much more context, authenticity.
Ooh, Allie, go ahead, educate.
Girl, I'm only talking because I'm in pain right now. I am learning from my pain as you're listening today on KZAA 96.5 FMLP. I am coming to you with a pinched nerve on my lower back. And it's funny because I set my goals, and I was like waking up at 5 and then life is like, you said you wanted to do things differently.
Yep.
So we're going to manifest that, and you're going to have to learn it in a way that you listen, which for me, it's like when I experience pain, I'm all ears. Like, okay, I need to know enough about it. I need to learn what happened. Where did it go? Like I go more in depth when there is pain. And
Yes.
that wasn't always the case though.
Yes, some of us need to learn the hard way. That's,
Mhm.
I mean, for sure, definitely. And so, it's the yin and the yang, like you said, the light and the dark.
Mm,
So sometimes, with the pain, it kind of brings you to the light. I know for me, like when I need to slow down, my body is just like, nope, you're gonna sleep for a day, or nope, you're gonna take on this little cold and allow it to process. And for you, it just kind of manifested in your back, but the universe listens,
mhm.
and
It's
it's
like,
like, oh, is this what you
you said you wanted this.
I kind of feel like it was that way with COVID. I know this is like off topic, but kind of with COVID, it was like everybody wanted to spend more time with their families. Everybody wanted to slow down. Everybody wanted, and then all of a sudden it's like, okay, everybody, stay at home and don't do anything except spend time with your families.
Yeah.
And it was good in some instances and others not so much.
Right, right, right.
Like my little
No, definitely. We have an opportunity, and to also, I think, for me, one of the lessons that's coming through this pain, and one, it's like, one, to have more compassion for others too, because I think about, people with chronic pain, and like my heart really goes out to, like, that's something that's not visible, and that it's still experienced. And so, again, it's like, okay, me reflecting on that, my privilege right now as like an able-bodied person, to be like, okay, this hopefully potentially will go away, but for some it doesn't, right? And like, it's teaching me also about like acceptance and compassion towards others, and giving grace towards others, and to decrease my, like, oh, we got to do this and that, like, to just pause and say, there might not be saying it, because again, there's so many stigmas around, like, pain and disabilities, but like, to really pause and say, well, there might not be saying it, but maybe I can see further deep in, and accommodate, or just bring a little bit of like, I see you, I have you, sister, brother, like,
Yes, absolutely. There are so
Mhm.
many people that are silently suffering.
Yes.
And, a lot of times when I have clients who are coming to me and they're like, oh, there's a lot of inflammation in their bodies, or um, so many people have low back trouble and like hip troubles.
Mhm.
And so, instead of kind of, being like, well, you should be doing this, it's more so like, well, have you tried this?
Yeah.
And so, some things to offer up are, okay, well, what are you eating that could, decrease your inflammation? What,
Mhm.
what kind of foods are you putting? You want those high vibe foods, right? So
Yes.
the phytonutrients, something like, so like plant-based foods, real high vibe, kind of healthy fats, and ensuring that you are treating your body well, like showing it care so that it knows, oh, okay, I'm not supposed to be in this much pain.
Right. Like
Um,
the tenderness, right? It's like, okay, if I already have this amount of pain that I live with daily, like the acceptance of it, and then being like, there's certain things that can help. And so I think that's,
mhm,
like, that's the part of being tender with yourself. And when you're
yes.
tender with yourself, again, other people are like, oh, I can be tender with myself too. I like that that person, took that break. I like that that person brought a
Mhm,
blanket to, where they needed to bring a blanket, and not judge it or criticize it. And that kind of leads me to something we're talking about, you know off the mic. We're gonna bring it back on the mic, about tenderness, and
um,
then what we see on social media, and judgment and criticism.
mhm.
There is something that struck a chord, and when you shared it with me, I was like,
It struck a nerve big time. So, for you, those out there who haven't seen it, go ahead and look it up. But Tom Brady had posted a photo of him and his son, and he kind of had his arm around him, and he was giving a kiss. I don't know how old his son is, maybe like 12 to 14, somewhere in that range, like teenager. Um, and he was also, the view of the picture was, it was as if his son was sitting in his lap, and it was just their legs and their feet, and it was overlooking the pool or the beach, wherever they were.
Mhm.
But he received a lot of backlash for kissing his son, and for his son being in his lap. And it really, like, it burned me up inside. Okay, now that's that fierceness that came out, because I was like, what the heck?
Mama bear.
Yes, like, why wouldn't we? So in my mind, I'm like, can we just normalize um men showing affections to their sons? Like, I- why is it weird to, as a man, to give your son a kiss? Why wouldn't they? Isn't that like normal human interaction? Um Isn't that what we all crave? And men too, boys crave that affection and that interaction and that tenderness, right? I just, I feel like, the for whatever reason, if men kiss their boys, that it somehow they think that it's going to like make them gay, or that it's unaccepted by our society. And for me, I'm all riled up. But
Oh, yes.
I couldn't wrap my head around this concept of it being weird. And for me, I'm like, the only people who are making it weird are the ones who are saying it's weird.
Mm. Yeah.
Affection's normal. Would it have been the same response for a woman, to be kissing her son and having her son in her lap, and that same, angle of the photo? Oh, her son is in her lap and it's their feet and their legs and you can see everything. So um I feel like there is this stigma around masculinity that they cannot show affection to their boys, but I wholeheartedly think that that would actually help our society in
Mhm.
so many ways.
Yes.
Thoughts on this?
Oh, chica, no, yeah, I'm like that's why when you talked about it, like I felt, like just that disappointment in society to be like, few times do we get to see, men tender, especially someone like Tom Brady, right? It's like he's just like, big shot, he's all over the news about, like being, kind of in a way he for me, okay, as as someone who's just seen from the outside and just know very little based on some of the headlines, I'm like, this guy's like toxic masculinity, like he is the embodiment of toxic masculinity. And yet at the same time, when this came, I was like, oh, he's a dad, and like I feel for all of us when we can't put out there the tenderness of ourselves, because like I said, like that tenderness is really also a path to our authentic selves, right?
Mhm.
Because we're tender with ourselves, we can be more ourselves. And those are the things, like those comments that just shuts it back out. And so when it reaffirms, the other side of it, it's like, no, that's weakness. That's going to make
Yeah.
boys weak. It's going to make them want a different life that I don't want them to have, so just a lot of imposing like these dominant narratives.
It is.
And it just makes it harder. It makes it really harder. And yes, I get that there's that caution of like, oh, like it looked, it looked wrong. I'm on the radio, so I'm like, what's the right word for this? So I don't have our sister Anna to be like, what's it?
Oh God, yeah, she's so good. Yeah.
She'll give me the little like I like ah.
Yeah.
And so yeah, we want to be respectful of the rules on air. So it just that it looks wrong, and it's like, and this is why, when you were talking about it, it just brought up the memory of watching the last Spider-Man movie and how I was just so excited and happy that the three Spider-Man boys, guys, were crying. And I was like, oh, this is awesome. This is beautiful. And, I'm excited about that direction. And then, hearing about things like this, and I get the side of caution, but at the same time, it's like, that's his dad, like, and I think this is also just, we are all so traumatized by all like the constant negative news we hear, right? It's like
Right.
very little, like I watch nightly news. I try not to, but when I do, it's like all like bad, 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 bad. And at the end, one quick minute about something positive.
Right. It brings, bad things bring in viewers. It's like people, it's like a train wreck, they can't stop watching.
Yeah.
Um, but in response to the whole Tom Brady thing, there were a lot of men who had commented and just said, "Oh yeah, my dad stopped hugging me and giving me affection at 12, or I remember my dad stopped telling me that he loved me."
Mhm.
And I kind of, at the end of my post, I, kind of like burned up about him, like, and for those of you who think it's weird, I'm gonna give you a hug because you probably need one. But it's true. It's like, yes, actually, these people whose fathers, did not show them affection or stopped by a certain age because they thought it was weird or because they thought it would make them weak and whatnot. It's like, actually, they're the ones who need it most.
Mhm.
And I think about how are men processing their feelings and how are Are we talking about feelings, guys?
The answer is no.
Right.
Or not. I'm not mad
Right.
about it.
Right.
Part of me feels jealous about the fact that they can like, really they have like, and I don't want to generalize, right? But a lot of the men, in my life and that I've encountered, it's like there's this wall, right? A really big wall.
Yes.
And so it's like in a way I'm like, I'm jealous because like you can stop all the that like intensity, right? But that's only from an outside perspective. I don't know inside really what's happening, what might be shaking, how it's impact them in another way, right? Where it's like their health.
Yeah.
How is their health? How is their their heart health? Other things that might be manifesting in other ways. Um, and I don't know the statistics of, but I've heard, through various, resources that, just men tend to have much more, autoimmune diseases as well. They manifest later in life. It just manifests in other ways.
Yes. And they have, I mean, women outlive men. And so that's kind of, I mean,
Boom.
it's known. Yeah. And I can almost relate to that because in the past, I've been really good about putting up a wall and being, kind of like, nope, turned off. I'm not talking about it. I'm I'm done. But what happens is that you bottle all that up.
Mm.
And then, like you said, it manifests in sickness or through rage, anger, and you might have an outburst somewhere else where it was like something really small that didn't really matter as much. So it kind of festers, and then all of a sudden, because somebody didn't close the door, it was a big problem. you
And
know,
they're like, what? Why are you yelling at me?
I'm like from something like 6 months ago. It's like, what is happening here? Um, so I feel, in embracing all of this like tenderness, I feel like we should have these conversations with
Mhm.
our partners or man friends or our coworkers, um and let them know like, hey, it's okay to feel.
Yes.
And I've been doing these exercises, especially with my kids too, because obviously, like, I want my son to be a well-rounded individual. But when he is feeling emotion, it's like, hey, it's okay. But what is it that you feel, and where do you
Mm.
feel it? And
Mhm.
let's identify. I have this sheet on my fridge that we can identify feelings and try to get him to talk. And sometimes he doesn't want to talk, and that's fine.
Mm.
But other times he's a little bit more receptive to it, and he'll say, like, oh, I just feel it in my chest, or whatever. But kind of getting him to talk about the feelings is the whole goal. So
Definitely.
allowing him to still be, masculine, but with a tender side.
Mm. That's amazing, Siobhan. Like you're really setting him up for success. And I'm learning more and more. Like as the more we bottle it up, it leads to self betrayal and self abandonment, like the self sabotage, all the things that we talk about, like how not to do that, right? It's like, well, it comes down to really acknowledging that you do have feelings, that you're a human being, and that like talking about them doesn't mean that it makes you a bad person, that it makes you weak, that externalizing them actually is very like that emotional intelligence, right? That you're very intelligent, that you have diversity in all your emotions, that you can acknowledge like, this is how I feel, and that leads actually to a solution, right? That pain can lead to being curious about solutions. Like case in point, the whole thing with my pinched nerve over here. I was like, okay, I've been feeling this pain for 2 days. And today I was like, yeah, chica. So I got online, looked it up. I'm like, oh, okay. So the
Yes.
knowledge is liberating. It's like, okay, this is what it is. I don't have to be scared of something else. It's like, okay, this is what it is. And these are actually proven ways to help. And
Yeah.
so I think you're really instilling that in your kids early on, that
Yeah.
they are, in that vulnerability, they're also just so much more wiser and have things in their hands that they can do as they get into adulthood.
Trying to give them the life hacks that I didn't have.
Yeah.
Oh, it's so much easier this way.
Yes, exactly. So
Mhm.
I have a quick theory about this, okay? Just
Yeah.
talking about, men's emotional health. And so, because I know that when we can be affectionate with them, like they soften up, right? And I
They
love that. I love that.
teddy bears, yeah.
Yeah, and then it's like, oh, these little teddy bears.
Yes.
Do you think, and this is just me, just all of a sudden having like a little light bulb. Do you think that leads us, to overcompensate? Like imagine like where it's like it was safe for both parent figures to show the same amount of affection,
Mhm.
right? Now it's like really just comes down to one, right? The mother figure. Um, does that lead us to overcompensate sometimes? I don't know. Just
Yeah, yes, absolutely. And especially I think in in certain cultures, you have um, there's a stigma around like Mexican mamas and
mm,
black mamas and how we are with our sons. Absolutely, yes. Um, Fortunately for me, my son has a good dad who's not afraid of affection and telling him how he feels or crying in front of that's normal for us. But I still am the smothering mama bear who will hey, and for a hug and
mm,
a kiss.
yeah.
So I think yes, the short answer is yes, that there are women who will overcompensate, and then then you get the guys who are like, oh, you're making him too soft. You know,
Mhm.
you're turning him into a bunny.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah.
Um, if I find the right word for that. So and again, it's yes, there can be two extremes on both sides.
Mhm.
You get these men, and kind of thinking about like mass shooters, mass murderers,
Mhm.
and a lot of times, they didn't get the affection. They didn't have, real friends. They were lacking that human interaction that we needed. And of course, most of the time it is men. Um,
Mhm.
I think all all of our mass shootings have been men
Yeah.
who's right.
Yeah.
Um, and so it makes me think about, just how much we do need that, and what happens when we don't get certain needs met as a human being. um,
Definitely. Yeah. Some of the clients I have, one of the what we uncover is that, when they feel when it, they're overcompensating in other ways, right? Working like to the bone, like just going above and beyond in all areas of their life. And a lot of it, what I've noticed a theme is that, they didn't get that affection. When they describe like, oh, like my mom never gave me a hug. My dad was like, keep your distance.
right.
So, it'll manifest in other ways, and we're humans. We're trying to find solutions to this like suffering that you can you can't cut it off, like maybe there's times where you can block it for a bit, or just like dissociate from it, disconnect from it, but it's still running its course, so we're accepting we're humans, and this tenderness is definitely a key. And so how do we activate tenderness if we don't know how? Let's say like someone here is listening on KZAA 96.5 FMLP on the show Que Madre, and they're like, well, what? I never got that. So I don't know how to be tender. It sounds all great. It sounds all good. You talked about the benefits of it, but how? How do I even start? Where do I begin that tender journey?
Well, such a good question. I have a background in early childhood education, and what I kind of found from that is that we are all just big kids in adult bodies. Ultimately that like inner child is is the one almost like controlling things.
Yeah.
Um, so I guess acknowledging um that inner child and saying like, okay, how do I go about protecting that child? How do I
Mhm.
go about showing love to that child that's within me?
Mhm.
And and some of it does require a bit more reflection and a bit more time to really think about what is it that your inner child needs. Um, but a lot of times like you said, it is the softness. It is the you know, hugs. I'm a big believer in hugs and how far those go and how much we just need that contact sometimes.
Mm.
So,
Yeah.
you know, you can write a whole list probably.
Yeah, no, there's definitely a lot of ways, I love sensory, so things that just will connect to your brain and body just by like sensations that we have in our body. Our cognitive abilities are awesome. We can process, but we also have a huge processor, which is like our skin, our ears, like our feet, like all these, like, so I know that a warm blanket can go a long way, right? And so like I've been contemplating, actually. I saw at Bed Bath they have this towel warmer, and I'm like,
Ooh, yes.
like, and then I'll go like, who are you to have that, Allie? And I'm just like, so,
First of all,
I'm like, but I know for it can make a huge difference, because you're like, I can't get a hug. Like I don't
mhm,
feel comfortable asking for a hug, or I don't know anybody's gonna hug me because the people around me don't do that.
right.
It's like in that intimate moment with yourself, like that's where you can discover the tenderness. And it could just start off with, just a warm blanket. Now, I'm not saying you have to go buy that, but
Yes.
just however you can warm it up.
Yeah. I have a lot of throw blankets. I have a whole basket in my living room of little throw blankets for people who come over. Um, but speaking of blankets, is a weighted blanket has
Mm,
done
yeah.
wonders because that feels like, you know, an extra a hug. It feels like you're, getting a little cuddle in.
Hmm.
You also like grounding a lot, and for those who are not familiar, just putting your feet in the sand or walking through grass and just enjoying the smells and the sensations of that.
Yeah.
Uh, you know, putting your feet in the water in the ocean
Yeah.
and just enjoying the waves coming in and out against your skin is really, it's like a magnetic pull for me. I just like it's a whole reset.
Yeah.
Um, Grounding is amazing for that.
Yeah. 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 I love that. It's like it's recalibrating, right? And that's the power of tenderness right there. Kind of a recalibration, kind of getting back to like, you know, like not full on balance, because sometimes that itself can be so much to ask for yourself. Like, I need to find balance. And it's like when things so much is out of balance, that's a big ask and that's a big task. And
Yeah.
so it's like, oh, like if it's 1% better, right? That is 1% better. And if you do that every day, you get to 100% at some point.
Mhm.
Um, but again, I think that the really embodying the rabbit, right? The tender and strategic, right? And strategic doesn't mean like, oh, I have to have 100% now.
Yeah,
Strategic and cleverness comes from one step at a time.
right.
Right.
Strategy just includes progress and not so much the perfection part of it. And that certainly should be released. The perfectionist part of it
Mhm.
is in large like a hindrance
Yeah.
to your progress.
Yes.
I like that. If it's just 1%, let's go with that. But progress in the right direction is what we need.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So we're here we are, on KZAA 96.5 FMLP. You're listening to the incredible Siobhan Hoover, warrior mother, Ali Cortez, founder of Bienestar CSCC. And then also missing our beautiful Ana Rosa Rizzo's sister, who founded this show called Que Madre. And we're talking about the power of tenderness. And, we really want to talk about this, not just today, just continue this conversation about, it's going to take time. We have so much to unlearn. And I don't know about you, Sean, but that to me can be super overwhelming,
Yes.
right? Like, it's like, oh, I have to unlearn this, I have to learn. And so it's like, I kind of come to a conclusion that it's, kind of almost like gently, a responsibility, right? That I'm choosing to take on. And that's part of my healing journey, so that we can bless the next generation, because they're asking for it anyways. I mean, like,
Yeah.
my brother, every time I talk to him, he kind of looks at me like, so what are you doing? Because I'll be like, oh, I'm
Yeah.
doing this and this and this, and he's not impressed.
Right.
Right. And I'm like, and I've seen that with other youth where they're like, okay, but like,
Right.
I don't
And
admire you for that. And I'm like, okay, I accept that.
because it's overwhelming. It's incredibly overwhelming to be that busy, or to be um, like you said, like thinking about like unlearning all of these things. That it just sounds so massive, right? You think
Mm.
about all the things that you've learned in your life, and how to unlearn the things that we like self-consciously just kind of move through our day to day with. Um, and so I try to think about it as not so much unlearning, but just learning new ways to combat, certain behaviors, and like you said, like you're super busy, you've got your plate full, you're going here, 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 here. But maybe we need to learn how to slow down a little bit. Get a blanket, be snuggly, take the time for ourselves to actually just sit and breathe
Yeah.
for a moment. And I know that I'm always big on breathing and like, um, but maybe it's taking a moment to have a little dance party and
Mm-hmm.
moving your body in a way that feels good to you. Um, maybe that's a little stretch, or maybe that's, being passionate with your partner. Maybe that is taking a hike. Whatever it is, if you need to sit, if you need to move, just ensuring that we are caring for our bodies in the way that is tender and soft. And, various levels of self-care require that of us. So
Yeah.
not just physically, but, emotionally, and of course, spiritually.
Yeah. 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 And it's going to take time. I think I'm giving myself a lot of grace, because sometimes I can be like, oh, I can't believe I don't, like, I know this and I'm not applying it. And I'm like,
Mm.
girl, like, it takes time to break these cycles. So I think part of being tender is like also having patience with yourself. And, it's like, so it's like, well, teach me all about, like, breaking
Yeah.
cycles and how to repair my mental health. It's like, no, it's going to take time. It's going to
Yeah,
take time.
the compassion for self
Hmm.
is the key here. And so, and then in turn, you're modeling, how you want to be cared for others, whether it be your partners or your family members, or, your children, or whatever it is. It spreads across, and everyone can see it, and
Yeah.
then suddenly it's like, oh, here we
Yeah.
are.
Yeah. So this episode was full of just awesome, subtopics relating to, being tender and the power of tenderness. We talked about, our own tenderness, our childhood, our inner childhood, about men's mental health, what we see, what we notice, and just like some strategies here, right? So to however you started the year, it's all good. It's all good. We'll take a day by day, and we don't have to rush this. That if you make a quote unquote mistake, you just notice it, become aware of it, and just just that. No more
Okay.
to-do lists, like,
Yeah.
on, like, your health, just listen.
Just think fluffy bunnies.
Yeah.
Softness, cuddly, snuggly.
Yes, and they're so brilliant. They're not weak animals. I mean, like, damn, the
Mm,
things they do,
yeah, yeah.
it is amazing.
Yes, I'm so excited to see what this year brings for us, for all of us. So
Mhm,
yeah, be kind
definitely.
to yourselves out there.
Absolutely. Well, sadly, we're looking to wrap up our show here. Isn't that time
Yeah.
flies by? So, but
Well,
we're gonna take it nice and slow and say our goodbyes. We so appreciate you, listening and really lending us your hearts, your ears, your whole self. We really, really appreciate you. Everything about you makes the show so just beautiful. So thank you for joining us as you're listening to us or watching on YouTube. And we're excited for come to what is coming this year. Siobhan, your last words to our listeners.
I think that we would just love to hear back from you guys and let us know if if we're on track here or if we're off, and either way we would love to hear your opinions and suggestions on everything here. As always, I'm just grateful and honored to be here. So cheers to everyone out there, and we'll see you next time.
Bye. Cheers.